Hi, it's Paul Vanis with GreatDad.com, and thank you for joining this special, extra, complimentary episode of Great Dad Talks, where we're speaking specifically about resilience and how to get it. And I'm interviewing different experts on resilience, mostly coaches who are talking about their success in helping people gain this very important life skill, how to bounce back from everyday challenges, big and small. I would invite you to also come and spend some time with me talking about my own approach to resilience and any of the issues that you have around fatherhood. You can find a scheduling link at GreatDad.com/go. Okay, see you in a minute. Hey, it's Paul Banis at GreatDad.com here with my weekly series talking to dads about modern fatherhood. And I've got an expert today we're going to talk about resilience in my complimentary part of my weekly series. So welcome, Richard Oelberger. Oelberger, right? Oelberger. I'll get
It's
it.
yeah, it's okay. It's close. Dr. Oelberger. Yes, that's
Oelberger.
why Dr. O, Dr. Zero, nobody can say the name. So whatever you want to call me is fine, but thank you.
Well, thanks for being accepting that. So
Once you
you're
get beyond 3 syllables,
yeah, I get very confused. So you're a clinical psychologist, and so you've got a lot of, and you work with performance, including athletic performance. And so I'm interested in about how what you've learned in that process about resilience. You've got three kids of your own too, and I'll be interested to hear how your your academic or professional knowledge kind of relates to your kids. But what got you focused into the resilience part of your profession, or do you consider that a real major part of what you do?
Great question. I mean, I work with men, I work with high performers across so many planes, and because we're talking mostly to dads here, I think the modern dad and having to tackle the family, the job, like just the amount of tasks, pressures, responsibilities that got me obviously from my own experience of trying to lead a family. And as you and I briefly talked about, lead a family through difficult times. But I did become curious, being a lifelong athlete myself, about the differences. Who are the athletes that succeed? How come some that are not the most talented thrive? And how come others who may have seemed to be the most talented early falter or
Hmm.
lose interest?
Right.
So how to foster that, and yeah, what makes for somebody to be resilient, and what it does for your character. Um, so I think it's something I became curious about. What are the ingredients to build it? How do you sustain it? Um, and what are the underlying beliefs or ways to manage emotional reactions, or the best environments, like we talked, you and I, about raising children or a community that would foster that kind of ability
Mm.
to take a difficult experience or moment collectively or individually and continue on. So
Well, that's really at the crux of what interests me. Is whether is all those things that dads do to create good human beings, and the active role I think dads should play in all that. Well, starting off with resilience, do you believe that some people are born resilient, or that it comes from some of these experiences that drive them? And then of course, if you don't start off resilient, if you feel like you're a very overly vulnerable person, too affected by the world around you, can you learn the skills to become a more resilient person?
great question. I think it can be, obviously there are um, biological determinants. I believe I've studied somatic psychology, and the
Mhm.
psychoneurobiology is the big term for, like, how much stress was your mom on? How much stress were your ancestors under?
Yeah.
Uh, these things can affect in a family different. They always say each child did not have the same parent, even in the same
Mhm.
family.
Yeah.
So there are factors that influence each child. However, what kind of nurture are you receiving? What kind of environment are you raised in? Or do you have mentors or models that show you different ways to cope? Just because there may have been a level of stress before you were born, what happened during early life. So I think that there's for anyone, if you are in an environment that's receptive, that's teaching you new skills, that's looking at EQ, emotional intelligence, as well as just academic intelligence, that is focusing on effort, things of internal control. So obviously, when it comes to the sporting world, a lot of teams I think, have this knowledge now. At the same time, things are more competitive than ever on a youth sports level, in terms of achieving and pursuing. And a lot of the calls I get to my office happen to be from, at least in Los Angeles, in bigger states where there's a lot of money going into high school sports. So high achieving, big vision. We want to be very successful and be very successful at our sport at the same time. And I think there's some confusion about how to get a young adult there and what
Yeah.
the ingredients might be.
Well, I can imagine it probably gets even worse back in the day that people put their kids into sports and specific programs, saying that that would be the way to toughen them up, if you will. Are there like big macro ideas, things like that dads should kind of subtly push their kids into to make them more resilient? Um, or is it real? Like I know you
Right.
mentioned
Well,
community.
yeah, I think exposure, I think challenge is really good. So I think giving, asking from a young age. I mean, obviously when they're with you and they're young, exposing them to, right. They're looking at not they're looking at what you do, not what you say. So that's the hardest thing. How do you model handling a difficult circumstance? How do you handle getting stuck in traffic? How do you handle when someone is disrespectful?
Hmm.
Uh, how do you handle opportunities to give charity or see someone with less than? All these, I mean, there's a million things, at least in the sporting realm. I go with my son to a lot of spring training games and other
Hmm.
sporting events. I mean, there's drunk people, there's people fighting, there's people getting all kinds of in your space. Like it's a great social experience. Um, and how are you responding? So I think there's the teachable moments. I think that, the car ride, we talk about leaving a game with your kid. Like so much of that is, are you focused on the relationship with your child? Are you focused on how they're doing, how they felt they did? Or are we really clear in what we're carrying and bringing? And I think it's really hard, myself included, that we come from, I wish I had a dad who had more knowledge about basketball and to guide me into college, say. So that's my personal experience. So we hold on to that and then we get a child. We say, I'm going to be the parent who gives them the best.
Right.
So we
Right.
put them in the hard, the basketball program, or we give them the best, let's say, in terms of quantity of training or investment of money. But then emotionally, we may have an attachment to that outcome. We are so invested without being clear why we need them to become something that we were not.
Right.
And so that awareness has to be very carefully worked on inside of us as dads. How attached are we to who we want our child to become? The result, right? The scores they need to get, the path they need to take. So I think the tool to take away is, and I talk about this in my book, becoming process focused rather than results, right? I
Hmm.
want to focus on the relationship with my son at whatever age. How are we talking to each other? What's he excited about? What's he curious about? Um, does he want my assistance? Or do I get out of the way?
Right.
Sometimes, we briefly touched on, I believe my 20-year-old son who's a college soccer player, and I probably never kicked a ball successfully straight in my life. I really feel I have very little to do with it. I think the best thing I did was stepping out of the way and letting him choose his mentors, letting him choose what excited him or what he loved. So I think when it comes to resilience, yes, they're going to see how you handle tough times. They're going to see if you fight, get angry, withdraw, the patterns that men go to. Um, do you turn to drinking or other habits that aren't healthy, they're going to see how you're coping with the stress. Versus, do you maintain a home that's still loving, that certain things are not affected by what's outside?
Yeah.
So
Well, it
this
sounds like what
kind
you're
of
saying is
model.
that like the first step to building your kids' resilience is to fix yourself, is to get that help and make sure that you're functioning in a way that is a good role model for them.
That's right. So men, I think we have it's kind of like very difficult. Men are going to hear this and go, "Well, yeah, right. I got my job, I got my family." We put
What
everybody
more do
else
you
in
want?
line first. Yeah, we put everybody else in line, and it's all built into this very deep core belief. So I want men to take a look at that. Yes, part of your character, part of your value, and part of an identity as a provider. We never want to touch that. If that's who you are, and that's what makes you proud at being a father, a man, I want to respect that. At the same time, when we're always putting ourselves last, they learn that too from a young age,
Mhm.
right? So I'll never forget, I think on the third grade board when they asked, "What does your daddy do?" And he says, he works at during the day and at night, and he barely ever sleeps. And that was like a 5 alarm fire because I was taking pride in this
Yeah.
role. And yet what my daughter was seeing was he's self-sacrificing himself and his health doesn't matter. So it's very, we have to, I think, take stock from time to time. Am I living in alignment? Am I living in balance? Where are the changes that I can make? Where am I, who are my accountability partners that I can go to and say, I feel like I'm a little bit, too attached, or I'm getting too angry at my son's soccer game or baseball, right? We don't have this filter. We get attached to um, our responses, and um, I think it gives us a sense of control. Like we don't want to let go of that control. So being open to feedback about what's going on and how we're showing up, and what we're really needing, and what might be the opportunity in taking a different approach.
Hmm. Well,
And I think it's a growth moment for us as dads. And that's the thing. I think even just being in the car, in that ride, and just being about communication, relationship, fun, adventure. Now, like you and I were talking, looking back, that we have the advantage of hindsight. I know that all those soccer tournaments were just a chance. Those are the memories that my kids are reflecting back to me, not because of, I mean, maybe they remember the wins and losses, but more importantly, they know that we went, we had fun, we did something together, and the time was invested in the relationship.
right. I know some people say that's our primary role is making memories for them. I don't know if that plays a role in resilience, but I do think that those memories of those times as a child are something you do carry forward to even into older age. For whatever reason, they have a certain primacy in terms of the whole experience.
Yeah, I mean, the stories that I remember from my own basketball playing days, I always talked about the two coaches. I had one that was like throwing the clipboard. I got the image when you were talking earlier. We used to send our kids to the basketball camp and just to toughen them up and push-ups and sprints, and you're gonna, right, a level of demand. And that was this coach, throwing cigarettes out the window of the bus, and versus the coach who didn't seem to have a lot of knowledge, but he loved everyone on the team and they loved him,
Uh-huh.
and he deferred to the assistants who had more knowledge.
Yeah.
And I just remember that experience as a teenager. And some days you started and some days you didn't. And the concept of that's in a way a resilience of, I don't have to be the most important. I don't have to be competing with my own team. That it's
Hmm.
okay to trust when others are doing well and to support others doing well. I don't know if that's something that we're building up really well. Collaboration,
Yeah.
right, versus competition. So this trusting that you're part of a team. And I think that's really important, talking about resilience. When I go into job force, when I go into schooling, where am I going where I get a sense of I belong, I'm a part of something,
Mhm.
I can rely on others, I can ask for help,
Yeah.
as opposed to I just have to compete and be the best. That's a very like lonely and anxiety producing identity if you don't have another switch.
Yeah. Well, you bring up an interesting point there, because I think a lot of people think of resilience as just brute strength, and toughening up, forcing them up to really go through challenges, and maybe kind of like in the American vein, doing it all on your own and being the star of the team, even without even thinking about how the rest of the team operates and all the rest. What are are there what are the dangers dad should be aware of in pushing it too far or getting an incorrect idea of what a resilience and inner mental strength is?
Mm. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind when you paint that picture, I mean, listen, God bless it. If you're an individual athlete and you have faced such adversity and you're able to sustain and persist
Right.
from that place of what you didn't get.
Yeah.
You know, I think that is a powerful motivator for some, and
Yeah.
um, people can be resilient from coming from not having,
Right.
and
Yeah.
from that drive to achieve it. Um, in a long-term sustainable basis, I think that we want to be loved. We want to be seen. I think
Yeah.
that children need that from their dads.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned. That's what I've experienced. They want to feel they're lovable no matter who they are or what they do. And that doesn't mean excusing or being okay with lack of effort or um, what you perceive to be a lack of care or a lack of poor habits that you may witness. So you are their teacher as a dad, and
Mhm.
your intuition and what you're picking up and what you're seeing is valuable for feedback. And so how we deliver that feedback, how we see our role as teacher
Mhm.
is the opportunity, right? I think that if you could see um, each moment as a chance to build. So yeah, if there's a poor uh, practice of showing up for practice or investing in your skill set and it's not showing up, yeah, teaching your child about not complaining, about redirecting your control inwards. What are the things you can do, whether it be as a student or whether it be as an athlete, that they're what control the controllables. What's your mental attitude? What's your reaction? Do you get back up after you get knocked down, or the ref doesn't call a foul, or whatever it may be? How are you responding to the external threats?
Mhm.
So you can be there to process the unfairness of it all, or but also the response of shutting down, getting angry, of pouting, of complaining, of throwing it. Some things that when our brains are not fully developed, we may close off because we don't have the skills. So the main role of the father is to teach skills, to model and build this concept. Right, we have this knowledge that if you continue using habits, it will lead to results.
Mhm.
So you want to change performance, right? Look at how are you showing up, how are you preparing, what is your plan? When we look at like mental toughness, we look at what's your performance plan, right? Do you show up just at the game and expect to be the best? Maybe it works when you're 8, 9, 10. Do you get poor sleep? Do you eat poor foods? Right? Maybe it works when you're really young, but these are decisions and choices that we can make and we can learn together that help you have an edge and be the best version of yourself. That's really what resilience is about. It's like, how do we face all the tests and be ready for the next level of test?
Right.
That's the key thing. To
Right.
be a high performer, you need to be able to tackle more stress. So, but it has to be a choice. You're ready for it, and you have a plan, and you have a way in which you are prepared
Yeah.
to handle no matter what the outcome may be.
Yeah. I do think dads often get confused or lost in the moment of what is the right thing to say. What is nagging versus what is reminding. What is a negative comment versus a helpful suggestion, and how to continuously play that and modulate. And I keep on coming back to the fact that you have to know your child and spend enough time with your child so that those kind of choices in how you modulate are less abrupt and a lot more in tune with them. But I don't know if you have any resources around that, or how dads can more more easily be in the moment so that they can pick the correct response to help their kids.
Mm, I'm really glad you highlighted that. I don't know if I have a specific resource other than if you are noticing that you are not present for those meetings with your child. Now there's so many, so many apps. Where are you looking at your own sense of letting go of tension? How well are you taking care of your own body and separating transitions from work to home, so that
Yeah.
we're not taking whatever stress we have from our life, from our finances, from our jobs, and placing them in this realm of creating the performer that will take away, right? So a lot of ways it's like this idea that if they have it better, if the next generation does better, it'll redeem my stress or something like that. It'll make it worth it. So the taking time to meditate, to visualize, to be present with yourself before you go into that meeting. So whether that be a 1 to 3 minute, and this is for ER doctors between patients as well, right? How do you handle transitions? So when I came from Skid Row and would come into my house, I would always take a 10 to 15 minute walk around the block.
Yeah.
So, and people will say, okay, I did a walk. So what, Dr. O? Right? It's the opportunity to do either breathing, grounding, look at the trees, look at the squirrels, get into your breath, get present to where you are before you go into that room, before you knock on that door, right? Because the energy that you come in with, or if your child is not ready to have that conversation. So I think you said the key thing, right? Am I spending time on their terms, right? So when would be a good time? When do we meet weekly? Is there a scheduled meal time? Is it in that car right after? When do we just connect? Because probably when the connection's happening is when they're going to be most receptive.
Yeah.
Do they even want your input, right? So it's not necessarily when you want to deliver the message, but it could be, creating the conditions so that they want to come to you and say,
Yeah.
Dad, I'm so frustrated what happened today. And am I really listening? Am I reacting because I'm irritated because my child is coming to me complaining they got a bad grade, or complain they're not getting playing time? Am I reacting, or am I ready to really listen? What are they needing from me? So
Right.
that
Yeah.
question, to kind of be asking yourself playing in the background, the meta conversation, what's being needed of me? Is there an opportunity here? Um, how can I show care? What kind of leadership do they need right now?
But yeah, sometimes that's really, really hard because I think in the fast-paced life we have, sometimes the kid comes to you at the wrong moment, and you're like, I was just reading the paper, or I just sat down to watch this TV show, or and looking
Mhm.
back years later, you're like, oh my God, my priorities are completely wrong. Like, what difference does the TV show make? But in the moment, it's you have to like prepare yourself to try to push down those other things and really focus on one of the most important things in your life, which is your kids.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because in fairness to dads, listen, I'm going to be watching my Final Four Florida
Yeah,
Gators on.
right. So, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So men need to have what their domain and their kingdom and their time. And
Yeah.
so I've been doing a 2 day a week stint in a prison. And one thing it's taught me is incredible structure. I
Hmm.
don't think I ever had it growing up. So my son now knows no showers after 11 p.m., because that's quiet time.
Yeah.
So learning even to create a framework. My point is,
Yeah.
what's the framework? When is the time I want to talk to you? When is the time I'm available this weekend? Um, Creating the opening for, when would you like to sit down? Right? I can come home tomorrow night after work, and we can work this out. Right? Would you be? Oh, I can drive you to school tomorrow. So I think it's creating the framework of expectations, and it is a training. They will test those boundaries. I think they will come to you and say, now isn't the best time for me. Um, so it may be sometimes, right? Is it just a 5 minute? Only is this a 5 minute? I just need a breath. I'll be there. I'll put down my paper. Or is this a non-negotiable for you as a dad? But this is part of self-care and modeling. It may build distress tolerance. I wanted to talk to him and he wasn't there for me. Maybe they have to go through the meltdown, or their own frustration has to build. Um,
I think you bring up a good point. Is this a recurring pattern where you're always saying, not right now, I've got better things to do than focus on you? Or if it's every once in a while where you're like, I have been waiting, we've all known that I've been wanting to watch the Final Four here and now I'm sitting down to it. Do you mind if we talk in, 2 hours rather than,
Is it a boundary or
yeah,
is it
is it
your
an
own
emergency? Yeah.
avoidance? Is it avoidance? That's something men should be asking. The red flags are avoidance and withdrawal, right? So is this am I withdrawing again? Am I just playing I don't know how to handle this. This is too much. So that's where having a partner, whether it be your spouse or a friend that you can kind of check in with, or in some cases your therapist, right? And be like, I'm not so sure. Did I handle that one this week? I'm not so sure I was ready. I'm not proud of how I responded, or I think I came off a little too harsh. And I also want to normalize that. It's like as dads, as parents, we are having tons of high performance. We're failing constantly and we're getting opportunities constantly. And it's okay that we're messing it up because what your child knows is that you keep trying, that you keep showing up, and that you own your mistakes.
It's great that there are more there are therapists and coaches who can help with those kind of conversations so that you can look at these situations and more with a little bit of a retreat, you can take a look at them and discuss what they.
That's really the key. I think nowadays, I mean, when you talk about sports psychology, if you're not working with the parents as well as the athlete,
Yeah.
going to be very, very challenging. And, you see obviously at some of the highest levels, those whose parents maybe were like, my child is so special that we don't need this kind of feedback. So it shows up later on, right? If you don't learn these skills early, it can show up in your professional career. So we're doing ourselves and our children disservice if we don't invest in this work early. If children learn distress tolerance, if they learn assertive communication, if they learn healthy boundaries about when to respect others, that's about joining community. That is about valuing others. That's about team. So we have a lot of power in our teachable moments.
Yeah, one other thing that you said that I think is always is worth reiterating is that before COVID, we all went to work and we had a drive or a commute that got us back home, and we had a time to de-stress in between leaving the workplace and getting home. And now we turn off the Zoom and we go to the other room and there the family is, and there's no time at all to switch or to do what the transitions that you're talking about. And so I think it's really important to reiterate how you have to plan for some sort of transition time in your own life so that you are more receptive to those family interactions rather than stepping right from work
Yeah.
into home life.
In the work I do, the men's group and men's leadership that I facilitate, we call it self time, right? You need to have a part of your life that's devoted to yourself. And a lot of men come in and they go, my work, I know what my work is. I know what my relationships are. I know what my money is. I maybe have a sense of spirit or not. I may have a connection to fun or adventure, but self, what is that? And I think that just goes, it's not just not there. So having self time, even if you don't know what your self is or who yourself are, or yourself has become a function of the roles that we play, having time. So I've men that get up early. That's an hour before or at the end of the night or time. Sometimes it's kind of commingled time in the gym, but the commute, you're absolutely right. When I took this job, the first thing that people gave feedback to me about, you're going to go work in a prison, they were like, I'm so happy for you. I said, what do you mean? Why are you happy for me? You're going to have an hour in the car there and an hour and a half on the car back, and you can do whatever you want. And it really shifted my mentality to, oh, yeah, I get to, so noticing where are the times, and they may not be large when you have small children or big families or lots of demands and multiple jobs. But if they're not there, we have to create them. That's it, and it's very easy to fall into victimhood or circumstance and defensiveness around this, but it can be small and it can be just as simple as stepping outside, seeing your breath, getting in touch with either the sun, the mountains, water if you happen to be near it, anything that kind of expands your emotional horizon from your life being this small reactive bundle to all the things that are closing in. So that is, like you said, the Zoom world, right?
Yeah.
Everything is like we go right from being in this meeting to the mailman, the dog. There's not separation. So it's recognizing that our nervous system, our physiological nervous system, we need to care for it
Mm.
and we need to protect it
Yep.
in order to be resilient, in order to, to circle back on our conversation, in order to handle more stress, we need to feel like we have the capacity to expand. So our nervous systems, I have this model, right, need to be kind of like expanding and then contracting. They have this function. So it's also about listening to our bodies when they are in a place of collapse, right, or shut down when you are exhausted after a long week or a long day, that collapse may be necessary. When
Mhm.
you say, not tonight, I can't, right, I need rest, I need recovery, I need a good meal, a good shower, that you're trusting that you know what your body needs. So I'm gonna when I come back in the morning, yeah, come, let's talk then, right? 10 hours from now, it's great. And I know it's hard because, like you're saying, seldom when we're in this high-paced, high-stress life does it always happen when we want it to happen. So I do think there's a tool around that, perhaps about kind of pre-planning for, hey, I really knew that I want to have this conversation with Paul this week. And so even if I walk in the door tired, I'm going to do my best to what are the three messages I'm going to send? I'm going to give a hug, tell them I love them, and say can't wait to see you on Sunday. And like maybe just that little 5 minute connection is going to help build resilience in the relationship.
Yeah, I think those are all really really good points going forward. We are so stressed and so pulled in so many ways, but listening to yourself and then also trying to find ways to get out, get some sunlight, to get outside of your domain, all those things, and more. I think most guys are going to be like, I get like another thing to do. But the trick is trying to figure out ways to incorporate those into your life so they don't seem like another thing on the to-do list, another demand, but they're more like, I'm going to go get a coffee anyway. Why not walk to the coffee store for 10 minutes and get some sunlight and some little bit, just a little bit of movement rather than, going through the machine-like existence a lot of us are kind of think
Very
we're kind of
important
stuck
what you're
with.
saying. To identify within you when you walk for the coffee, what is it about it, right? Like I know we're all in the habit, right, of like, oh, that's my way of getting out and taking care of
Yeah,
myself.
especially
And
habits. I think habits like that aren't necessarily helping you, but could be transformed into a different experience.
that's right. What is it about that walk to the Starbucks? For me, I started to notice I love looking at dogs. I love to smell lavender. I love to talk, right? Starbucks,
Yeah,
probably branding, right? I love to talk to the barista. I love it
yeah,
that somebody remembers me. I love it that I can take interest in someone else. Little things that then get me out of myself.
yeah.
So sometimes, in leading men's groups, we encourage men make a 60-second call, right? It's the hardest thing for men to pick up the phone. Make a short, brief, connection with somebody else. So if you can feed yourself through, right, learning a podcast, but it can be as simple as just breathing, stretching, giving yourself space and calm to not respond to anyone else. Obviously, with our devices, things like that, maybe it's taking a few hour holiday from your device, turning notifications off. Um, so when we get creative, that's the key. That this increased stress and demand requires increased creativity.
Yeah, I think probably a lot of people think like, well, you're way off the mark in terms of resilience. But resilience has so much built into it, and part of it, I think, is that respect for the human condition and embracing it and living it rather than pretending you're somehow outside of it or you're going through the motions, but you're not really living it. And I think all that you and I can do is, other than write books and try to help in men's groups and things, is to continuously support that idea so people have the permission structure or the gentle prompting to move into more of this way of living that will make you a stronger, less reactive, and less dangerous person.
Yeah, the key I think to realize about myself or about any other man is yes, I hope they take my course. I hope they read my book. I hope they talk to one of us or listen to your podcast and subscribe. And I'm so thankful whenever I see a podcast devoted to dads, right? But we're all mentors for one another.
Yeah,
I
great.
always laugh. The elevator moments, the people you bump into on the street, you have tons of opportunities daily, right? Every single person that I can make eye contact with or have some exchange is both an opportunity for someone to take stress off me or vice versa. You just never know where someone's at in their day in the moment.
Yeah.
So looking for those opportunities or being open to, you never know who's going to be able to tell you a joke, laugh at something small that you observe on the street that's offering you a tool to take in. Like, we're all learning. And if we didn't receive the parenting or the environments that we needed when we were young, like, to be hungry for that, to be seeking that, it's okay. It's okay to not know, be uncomfortable in the not knowing what to do or how to be, to embrace that. So being vulnerable is okay, is really what I'm trying, to model. And
Yeah.
as much as my, kids will say, you're the most embarrassing dad whatsoever, talking to strangers, being open to the wisdom, that can come from just engaging with other human beings and the possibility. So, but if there is a part of you, that when you were focusing on resilience was specifically about sports, I do think the parallel is, we do need to learn how to deal with failure. We do need to learn how to deal with adversity. We need to know what to do when you get punched in the mouth or things don't go your way. So these are things that our children are not going to know. They're not going to know. And I think we have a lot of ideas these days about creating happiness for them or them being happy, to make up for our own wounds or unhappinesses. And I just want to kind of call that out. It's kind of a myth, because having your children face some toughness, having them face challenge, can be what builds their character.
Yeah,
And
that's always a hard trick, and finding the right ones that'll also get them into the best college is also the hard point. The thing that's tragic, but not too tragic, if I can be a little bit humorous
right,
on that note. But I mean, they need challenges, and they need to fail, and it's one of the more painful things about being a parent, is watching them have to go through that, and knowing that you not only can you not save them all the time, sometimes you shouldn't. Yeah.
right.
Well, thank you
That's right.
very much, Richard, for joining me. I really appreciate the conversation. This sounds like you and I are on the same wavelength about a lot of these things. Just really embracing all the parts of being a father that go beyond just the basics. So people can find you at richardlistens.com, and then your book is the Zero Method, which is available on Amazon.
That's right. And the course info.richardoelberger.com is embracing masculinity and self-worth. So if you're not ready to hop into therapy, you're busy, man, but you have 18 minutes at a time to do a module, and you're willing to pick up a pen and journal and learn a little bit about yourself.
That's great. That's great.
Uh,
The unexamined life not worth living. It's
that's right.
it's
Paul, thank you for
risky business.
doing this podcast and for being out there and being in the Podmatch community and for reaching out to me.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Richard. Again, Paul Bance with GreatDad.com. You can find my coaching offerings at GreatDad.com/go, including a free course to podcast listeners on gratitude. And that is definitely one way to also build resilience. Okay. So until next time, stay strong.
Thank you. Grateful for you and all your listeners.